Every massive industry has a definitive, year zero, a single moment where everything changes, usually driven by someone who had absolutely no intention of starting a revolution. In the world of streetwear, that year was 1979, and that person was Shawn Stussy. Before it became a global empire, and long before the term streetwear even existed in the fashion lexicon, Stussy was just a last name scribbled in black Sharpie on the foam of a surfboard. This is the story of how a punk rock-inspired surfboard shaper from Laguna Beach accidentally built the blueprint for modern fashion, went toe-to-toe with luxury houses like Chanel, and why he ultimately walked away from it all. To understand the DNA of Stussy, you have to understand California in the late 1970s. Shawn Stussy grew up fully immersed in the West Coast surf culture. But Shawn wasn't just a casual beachgoer, he was a craftsman. By 1979, he had opened up a small-time surfboard shaping business in Laguna Beach. He knew how to shape a board like the back of his hand, but he also cared deeply about how they looked. Surfers have an intensely personal relationship with their gear. A good board lasts for years, so the design has to be timeless. Shawn brought a distinct, counterculture aesthetic to his shapes. To brand his work, he drew a stylized version of his last name across the boards using a thick black marker. The iconic, looping signature was actually heavily inspired by his uncle, James Stussy, who was an accomplished artist. It looked abstract, it looked rebellious, and most importantly, it looked like nothing else on the beach. At this point, Stussy wasn't a clothing brand. It wasn't even a retail business. It was a one-man operation operating out of a garage. But that was all about to change in 1982. In 1984, Shawn decided to showcase his custom surfboards at the Action Sports Retailer Trade Show, a major industry event where shop owners came to buy the next season's gear. To help promote his booth, Shawn had a clever marketing idea. He printed his stylized handwritten logo onto a bunch of basic black t-shirts. The plan was simple: sell the shirts on the side, or give them away, so people would walk around the convention floor acting as free human billboards for his surfboards. He wasn't trying to break into the fashion industry. He didn't care about apparel design. It was purely a marketing stunt. Then, the universe flipped the script. The trade show attendees didn't just like the surfboards, they became absolutely obsessed with the t-shirts. The bold, artistic logo completely overshadowed the actual products he was trying to sell. By the time the weekend wrapped up, Shawn had sold a modest 24 surfboards, but he had sold nearly 1,000 t-shirts. It was a massive wake-up call. Shawn realized that while the market for custom surfboards was small and localized, the market for a compelling, authentic subculture logo was practically limitless. He looked at the numbers and asked himself the obvious question: if everyone wants the shirts, why am I killing myself shaping boards? Transitioning from a garage-based surfboard operation to a legitimate apparel company doesn't happen overnight. Shawn knew everything about surf culture, but the logistics of manufacturing, supply chains, and corporate finance were completely uncharted territory for him. He needed a business partner who could handle the paperwork while he handled the vibe. Enter Frank Sinatra Jr. to clear up the obvious confusion. No, this wasn't that Frank Sinatra. He wasn't related to the legendary crooner at all. Instead, he was a certified public accountant, CPA, whom Shawn had befriended during a ski trip. It turned out to be the perfect partnership. Frank brought financial structure, legal know-how, and business strategy to the table. Together, they drew up a formal business plan, and in 1984, they officially relaunched Stussy as a fully realized clothing brand. But even with corporate backing and a new business structure, Shawn made one thing non-negotiable: he refused to abandon his roots. They were going to market directly to the surfers, skaters, and punks who gave the brand its original spark. During the mid to late 1980s, Stussy began to spread like wildfire, but not through traditional advertising. It spread through word of mouth and cultural osmosis. At the time, mainstream fashion brands were trying desperately to grab attention. The 80s were defined by loud, neon colors, massive over-the-top graphics, and wacky patterns. Stussy took the exact opposite approach. They kept it remarkably clean and simple. Their most popular item was just a well-fitting, high-quality plain t-shirt featuring that signature handwritten logo. Because of this simplicity, the clothes became incredibly versatile. You could wear a Stussy shirt to the beach, skate the local halfpipe in it, and then wear that exact same shirt to a nightclub or a grocery store. It was effortless. This versatility allowed the logo to bleed out of the surf community and into other rising underground subcultures, specifically skateboarding, punk rock, and hip-hop. In the late 80s, wearing that Stussy logo wasn't just a style choice, it was a secret handshake. It was a visual cue to the rest of the world that you belonged to an authentic, creative subculture. It represented an underdog mentality that resonated with youth culture globally. By the turn of the decade, Shawn and Frank realized they had outgrown the sunny beaches of California. The West Coast gave them their identity, but the future of fashion was happening on the concrete streets of America's major concrete jungles. They packed their bags and headed straight to New York City. It was a massive gamble. Half of Stussy's customer base consisted of hardcore surfers, and now they were moving to a city where the nearest surf break was miles away. But Shawn had an intuition. He could see that the dots were connecting between the beach, the skate park, and the inner city streets. New York was the epicenter of a massive cultural explosion, hip-hop. This wasn't just a genre of music, it was a lifestyle, and hip-hop was about to embrace this new aesthetic tighter than any other subculture before it. Looking back at this transitional era, Shawn later reflected, hip-hop was in a good moment. The dots were connecting with other things besides the beach. It was a good time. Unbeknownst to them, they weren't just riding a trend, they were actively inventing the very concept of streetwear. Breaking into the cutthroat New York fashion scene is notoriously brutal, especially for a couple of California outsiders. Fortunately, they crossed paths with a local retail mastermind who knew the city's underground scene like the back of his hand, James Jebbia. Before he became a legendary figure in his own right, Jebbia was working at influential local storefronts like Parachute and Union. He understood the NYC skate community, he knew how to manage a retail space, and he knew exactly what the youth wanted. The partnership happened naturally. Jebbia initially reached out to Shawn because he wanted to stock Stussy pieces at Union. The chemistry was instant, and by 1991, they decided to join forces to open a standalone Stussy flagship store in the heart of SoHo. This was a make-or-break milestone. If Stussy failed in New York, it would prove they were just a regional California surf fad. But if they succeeded, they would conquer the world. And succeed they did. The SoHo store became an instant cultural hub. It wasn't just young skate kids lining up, the brand captured the attention of New York's most high-profile style icons. Eddie, the manager of Union, famously recalled seeing John F. Kennedy Jr. regularly riding his bicycle through the streets of SoHo, casually wearing a tailored suit paired with a Stussy cap. The brand had officially penetrated the cultural elite. As Stussy's momentum grew, they found themselves occupying the same cultural real estate as the historic luxury houses of Fifth Avenue, powerhouses like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Dior, and Chanel. To the mainstream fashion establishment, the idea of a graphic t-shirt brand competing with Parisian couture was laughable. Shawn Stussy's response? Absolute, brilliant artistic trolling. In a move that would forever change fashion branding, Shawn designed the now infamous double S logo. It was a blatant, unapologetic flip of Chanel's iconic interlocking double C monogram. This wasn't just a cool graphic, it was a profound cultural statement. It was Shawn's way of holding up a mirror to the luxury industry and declaring that Stussy's cultural relevance and design integrity were just as valuable as brands charging exorbitant, gate-kept prices. Yet, despite its skyrocketing status, Stussy made a conscious effort to keep its prices reasonable and accessible. They knew their core audience consisted of young kids who couldn't blow an entire monthly paycheck on a single hoodie. Stussy proved you could be deeply exclusive without being elitist. With New York conquered, Shawn took his vision global, creating one of the most brilliant grassroots marketing campaigns in history, the International Stüssy Tribe. This wasn't a corporate street team, it was an organic, global collective of creators, musicians, DJs, and tastemakers who inspired Shawn. We're talking about massive cultural pioneers like Hiroshi Fujiwara in Tokyo, Goldie and Michael Kopelman in London, alongside raw, underground artists who simply possessed undeniable style. Shawn would gift each member a highly coveted, personalized varsity jacket with their name embroidered on it. None of these people were paid a single dime to promote the brand. Instead, the sheer authenticity and aura of these custom, members-only, jackets created an intense mystique. The tribe would throw legendary gatherings across London, Tokyo, and New York that felt less like corporate PR events and more like the most exclusive parties on earth. Everyone wanted in. Through figures like Michael Kopelman, the brand seamlessly expanded its footprint overseas, cementing Stussy as a globally recognized phenomenon. Shawn had unlocked the ultimate cheat code of modern retail, the sheer, untamed power of hype. By the mid-1990s, Stussy had achieved global domination, but success always invites imitation. The brand had grown so fast that the mainstream market caught on. Suddenly, dozens of corporate copycats began popping up, blatantly ripping off Shawn's signature style, and there was very little the legal team could do to stop the flood. Worse yet, the very infrastructure Shawn had helped build was turning against him. In 1994, James Jebbia, the man who had partnered with Shawn to launch the SoHo store, decided to branch out on his own. Using everything he had learned from managing Stussy, Jebbia opened a tiny skateboard shop on Lafayette Street. Its name? Supreme. While Supreme is a massive story for another day, its arrival marked a shift. The culture Shawn helped birth was moving faster than ever, and internal tensions began to brew. Rumors swirled that the company's leadership wanted to alter Stussy's pure design approach to chase fleeting corporate market trends. This corporate bickering didn't sit well with Shawn. He wasn't a fashion executive, he was a surfer who had stumbled into a multi-million-dollar empire by accident. In 1996, tired of the corporate grind and wanting to protect his peace, Shawn Stussy made the shocking decision to completely step away from his namesake brand, selling his remaining shares to his partner, Frank Sinatra Jr. Whenever a visionary founder leaves a brand, a death watch usually begins. And for a while, Stussy genuinely teetered on the edge of irrelevance in America. According to Frank, the brand hit a brutal rough patch post-Shawn. It survived because of one thing: an incredibly intense, almost religious cult following in Japan. Thanks to the roots planted by the International Stüssy Tribe, Tokyo's youth kept the brand alive and profitable while the American market stalled. But Frank wasn't content with just surviving, he wanted to reclaim the throne. To do that, Stussy had to invent a completely new playbook. In 1997, they launched a project that would alter retail history, a partnership with the watchmaker G-Shock. Today, fashion brands drop collaborations every Tuesday, but in 1997, the concept was practically non-existent, especially a clothing brand partnering with a tech/accessory company. The G-Shock watch sold out instantly, proving that the Stussy logo could legitimize products outside of apparel. Capitalizing on this momentum, Stussy struck gold in 2001 by partnering with Nike. They released a highly exclusive take on the Nike Dunk, complete with a distinctive snakeskin leather swoosh. To ground the project in reality, Stussy simultaneously launched its first-ever official skate team. The Dunks evaporated from shelves in just 2 days. This partnership became the catalyst for the modern sneakerhead culture we see today, paving the way for future legendary drops like the Spiriton and the Air Force One. As the decades rolled on, Stussy stabilized as a timeless heritage brand. In 2014, a new era began when Frank's son, David Sinatra, took over the reins as CEO. David didn't tear up his father's blueprint, instead, he elevated it. Under his watch, Stussy shifted toward a more mature, thoughtful, and premium aesthetic while keeping its democratic pricing intact. The ultimate validation arrived in 2020, marking the brand's 40th anniversary. Stussy invited a murderer's row of fashion royalty, including Rick Owens, Virgil Abloh, Marc Jacobs, and Martine Rose, to redesign the classic Stussy World Tour t-shirt. For decades prior, a young guy in Laguna Beach took a gamble on a handful of promo tees. Now, the most influential designers on the planet were lining up to pay homage to his handwriting. It was a flawless, full-circle moment. But perhaps the most poetic twist occurred that same year. For Dior's Fall/Winter 2020 collection, creative director Kim Jones, a self-professed streetwear fanatic, bypassed the Stussy Corporation entirely. Instead, he went straight to the source, collaborating directly with Shawn Stussy himself. Seeing the godfather of streetwear bring his signature lines to the runways of Parisian haute couture proved that Shawn's original vision had won the cultural war. Inevitably, historians ask the ultimate, what if Shawn had never walked away in '96? Would Stussy be bigger? Would it have collapsed under corporate weight? The truth is, it doesn't matter. The split preserved the brand's mystique and allowed Shawn to keep his integrity. Today, Stussy remains one of the most fiercely respected names in fashion, continuing to drop high-quality collections that bridge the gap between subculture and luxury. Streetwear didn't exist before Shawn Stussy put marker to foam. he didn't just build a brand, he wrote the code for an entire global subculture. And that is a legacy that time can never erase.